When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
All right. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs. And of course, every week, as I promised, we have just some of the most amazing guests. Most of them are female. There's a choice 4 or 5 men that I've interviewed on my podcast over the years. And we've been doing this since 2019. So thank you again for your loyalty and making us the top 1% globally of all podcasts. And today we have Alysia Silberg on our show, and she recently released her first book, Unemployable: How I Hired Myself. I have heard this phrase, and so many women have said to me, I'm unemployable now. But what does that really mean? So we're going to get into what that really meant for Alysia in just a few minutes. And before we do, we want to thank the sponsor of today's show, Phoenix Drone Pros. At Phoenix Drone Pros, we love what we do, and we're passionate about each and every drone photography and video shoot. We've been in business since 2017. Our talent and skills shows in video production we deliver. We offer fast service for commercial real estate, movies, events, and construction site monitoring. We also provide drone virtual tours that are all the rage right now. These virtual tours are great for team building and for entertainment. Contact us today at phoenixdronepros.com to schedule your shoot online or get more information. We are now franchising, so reach out for info on how you can purchase your own drone company today. We capture everything. Thank you, Phoenix Drone Pros, for sponsoring today's show of Take the Leap. All right, Alysia, let's introduce you. She is incredible. I can't wait to get to dive in with her so you can get to learn more about her. Alysia Silberg is a cross between a survivalist and an industrialist, someone who has had to innovate and use whatever resources are available because they had to, and someone who sees opportunity in the marketplace and capitalizes on those. Alysia was born to blaze trails. I love that. As the daughter of a Hollywood makeup artist who worked with screen legends like Marilyn Monroe, Natalie Wood, and Marlon Brando, some of our favorites from back in the day, she grew up with the dream of making her own mark in the world far away. A math and science prodigy, she nurtured her entrepreneur instincts while still in grade school, starting her first business, an import-export agency at the age of 11. Heck yeah. Alysia also grew up in poverty in South Africa, where she experienced violence, abuse, and even a gunshot wound. But today, Alysia is a leading venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, where she mentors tech startups and helps them go public. She's a CEO and general partner of the investment firm Street Global. And she recently released a book, Unemployable: How I Hired Myself. Alysia Silberg, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Colleen. Very excited to be joining you.
Okay, business at the age of 11. We've got to go all the way back now to 11. Everyone's like, wait a minute, she was exporting and importing at the age of 11. And I love to hear these childhood stories because it really connects the listeners to understand like where that spark of that entrepreneurial spirit came from.
For me, it was about a pair of pink roller skates at 5 years old. I grew up poor, as you figured, and I really wanted them. And everyone around me had them. I couldn't afford them. And so I decided I had to figure out a way. And my dad had these cool suits, from back in the day, Hollywood. And I decided I was going to sell all these suits. And so I started my first little business, and it was a huge success. And I think that's when the bug got me. And then by the time I got to 11, I was very lucky. My brother was my partner in my crazy adventures. And we decided that through many things that happened. So my dad passed away when I was 10, and we were going to lose our family business. And the only way we could survive and not land on the streets was to use whatever entrepreneurial DNA we had. And so it came down to figuring out how we could import stuff from overseas. And it wasn't easy, I can assure you. It was survival, literally survival. But I think it's when those moments where you think you're going to give in, you're going to quit, You have to find that inner resilience that I know many of your listeners possess. I know you possess too. And that's when you see your true strength.
Yeah, I think resilience is a topic that's not discussed enough. A client of mine actually has a summit coming up on resilience and, emotional intelligence. And I too grew up in poverty. And I understand what it's like to be out on the street. At one point I was homeless. It's like, you just don't have a choice. You have to activate whatever you have inside of you, and you become very, prone to finding resources no matter what they are. So I have to go back and ask the question that everyone might be asking. Did your dad know you were selling the suits? Or, okay, I'm just checking. Like, did you
That was a funny story. So my dad adored me. Like, if you read the book, he talks about having a divine sparkle. And it's something that I think I want everyone to believe in, that they each have a divine sparkle. But at the moment where I undertook to sell the suits, I think my dad was reflecting on how much he truly did love me, because he really loved those suits. And, they were reminders of his time in Hollywood. And I don't think he thought I'd pull it off. I think he thought, okay, this is great. You're going to sell these suits. And then he was very surprised when 2 hours later, there were no suits left and everyone was very excited with their acquisitions. But there is definitely a backstory to that.
Your dad had to have loved you to be able to do that for you, for sure. Now, you grew up in South Africa. Is that what you said? Did you grow up there were you born in South Africa as well?
I was born in South Africa. So my dad had a lot of hardship. So, he came from nothing and came to America to live that dream. He had to go, he was very successful here. And he had to go back to South Africa to look after his mom. It was very, very tough for him. And so I was born there, even though I think in his world, I would have been born here. But I was born an American in Africa. As crazy as that may sound, I was like in my mother's womb and I was like, I'm going to America. I'm going to find my people.
No, I think that we all have a destiny and we land there eventually. So I think it is just absolutely adorable. And it's such a different world in South Africa versus in the United States. But, I also know that you could move state to state in America, move city to city, and it's like a different world. You walk into a different world. I mean, I think of living in Arizona versus when I visit downtown, New York City, totally different world. Yeah, totally different world. And, in the same country. So for sure. So you escaped that violence, but what did the violence teach you when you were younger in that age? I know it taught me a lot. I was in some abusive relationships. What did that teach you? Is that where the resilience was built? Is that where, did you struggle because you built a shell around yourself for a while and wouldn't let anyone in? What happened?
May I begin by just thanking you for what you just shared? Because it's so wonderful to meet other women who are very, very successful, who have been on these journeys. You're like a unicorn. So thank you for sharing that. I get very emotional hearing you tell your story. And it was exactly as you describe it. Everything you just said in terms of that inner resilience, in terms of building that shell, in terms of not letting people in. Every single one of those things happened. And those things, probably you'd understand this too, they perpetuated throughout my life. And I have to do a ton of personal work in order to heal, to give other people the room to enter my life. And you work with a lot of women entrepreneurs, and to give them the space to be their biggest selves, I had to do the personal work, because even though I may be present with my entrepreneurs, there was still like this shadow self speaking at times at the back of my mind. Like, am I worthy enough? I feel like an imposter, and all these things that were not true. But at the same time, I had to free myself of those burdens. So absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And I know there are listeners out there today that might feel trapped by a past, trapped by something that happened to you, and you were a victim at that time. And that's okay to admit that. But I also want to ask each one of the listeners, is this where you want to stay? You and I are great examples of it's possible to design a life that you want to live and not be victim to life happening to you. right? Because life is going to happen. It's really like, how are you going to rise from the ashes? How are you going to take that and that how it molded you and built in the strength that you have today, Alysia, now to take that and do what you did to get out there, write a book, start your own business, be part of a firm that's investing in startups and, land yourself in Silicon Valley. That is huge to be an investment firm partner and CEO. Now that you decided I'm unemployable and you moved into this direction, how does that make you feel about who you are today? Because I had to go through that personal work too, because I had my best friend said to me one day out of the blue, were you born that way or did you build that shell around yourself over time because you just refused to let anybody in? And I just thought, what do you mean? You're my best friend. I let you in, but I knew exactly what she meant. So
such beautiful, beautiful words. And I feel so privileged to be having this conversation with you. And I think that's the gift that's come out the book. And I highly recommend to each of your listeners, whatever they've been through, as you said earlier, about choosing not to be a victim. I think the greatest gift for me that came out the book was to be able to have this conversation with you, where there was a moment. Let's start with the term unemployable. I had a huge challenge. Many people around me said, you can't use that title for the book. But if you look at the truth of my story, if the goal is to be truthful and have freedom, to be able to say I'm not a victim, to be able to say that I conquered these things, and to empower the reader, which is the goal of the book, truth is the foundation, which means I need to tell the truth about what happened in order to free myself from the shackles that held me back. And exactly like you say, I thought I was being incredibly vulnerable in the book. And my editor turned around to me and he said, "You're a faker." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I bared my soul in this book. I'm finding it extraordinarily difficult. You mentioned you've been through incredibly difficult circumstances. Taking that and putting it on paper takes a great deal of pain and heartache. It's one thing when it's in your head or in your body. It's another thing when it's on a piece of paper with knowledge that people around you may view you in a different light." Yeah. And I said, "What do you mean I'm a faker?" And he's like, "You're not being vulnerable. You're playing it safe. You're asking these people to trust in their journeys, no matter what they've been through, but you won't trust in them not to judge you." And I was really shaken up because I thought I was really going all in. And it was a moment, I think, of self-enlightenment and a turning point where I was like, okay, there are things in the book that I think will surprise people about that abusive relationships. I've always tried to protect everyone and respect them and be grateful for the fact that I got to rebuild my life. But at the same time, it was tough going. And as I say, I implore everyone to write a book, if for nothing else, to free themselves from whatever it is that's holding them back to live their fullest life.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I agree. Putting things down on paper, journaling is really one of the practices of anyone who is able to truly be successful, because they're focusing on the forward, they're focusing on the future, they're focusing on the who I want to become, right? And journaling gets all that out. I just recently actually worked through a Christian book, The Art of Forgiveness, and it walks you through forgiving others that have brought harm to you in your life, as well as forgiving yourself. And you would it's crazy to me how many people, the list is long, and you think it's maybe 5 people because those are just the bigger hurts, but the list is extremely long. So, I mean, you are just such a great example to show that kind of out of the ashes when things around us are falling apart and there's things that we're born into or can't control, or we make mistakes. Those things become stepping stones and mold who we are and build that resilience. So use it as fire, right? And I think that's what you've done. You've taken that and used it as strength and fire to continue doing what you do today in Silicon Valley. Talk to us a little bit about You said you're a UN Women Empowerment Women Global Champion. Talk to us about that as being a director on the board there.
I'm incredibly grateful. I think going back to this conversation, you know what it's like to carry what you believe, when you're a victim of abuse or whatever your circumstances, whatever you want to call it, you carry a lot of shame. You're often not aware of the amount of shame you carry, and you blame, or I can speak for myself. Let me speak for myself. I blamed myself for several things. I think the list was, as you said, there was no self-forgiveness. There was no being kind to myself. I think there was a substantial amount of self-loathing. And when this opportunity came with the UN, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. The idea that people would discover all this, like what I perceived as dirtiness inside of me, I thought it would kill me. And it came to midnight before I had to send everything through. And I couldn't give them answers. I was just so filled with, what are they going to think of me? No one will look at me the same again. Like, I'm such a filthy person. I'm such just a awful person. I had all these accomplishments, but I didn't feel good about myself inside. And my husband, who's the most incredible person on earth, he literally saved my life. He wrote the answers. I couldn't do it. And to this day, I've been so grateful to him, because I remember the first time I got up at the UN and I spoke, and people didn't look at me like I was any of the things I perceived myself as being. They looked at me the way we're looking at each other now, like, wow, we made it through. We did this. We got to the other side. And my entire life changed from there on out, because instead of, as you say, being a victim, even if it never looked from the outside like I was a victim, I felt like a victim. I went to becoming a true warrior, where it was like I had a voice and I could speak and I could talk about things to other women that I never felt safe speaking about before. And that's how you create change, where we feel safe enough to have these conversations, where you can talk about what you went through. And that's how things change. That's how the next generation of women, whether it's our kids, young women, whatever the case may be, that's how things get better, because it's safe to actually speak. I think if you think back in history, having a Zoom call with you, that wasn't possible. How do you change things if you don't even know that person's has been through something similar to you? So again, incredibly appreciative, and I hope women have benefited. And I think each one of these things we do, like all your accomplishments, it's small steps. It's small steps where other women are looking at you and saying, like, wow, look what Colleen's doing. I can be like Colleen. How do I replicate what Colleen's doing in her life for myself?
Yeah, I definitely agree that victimization is very crippling. It's very unempowering. You feel very powerless, and unseen, invisible, I guess is the word. But I love to put myself in other people's shoes to say, there's a woman up there speaking and I'm watching her, and she's gone through all of these struggles and she's overcome them. And I'm on my feet standing and clapping for her, thinking like, oh, I have tears rolling down my face. And then you're like, I am that person, and then you're like, wait a minute, I am that person. Why are we so hard on ourselves? Because like you said, it's not what everybody else sees. And we have kind of this mirror image of what we think other people see. So it does take effort of community. It does take effort of people around you. It does take effort of knowing you're not alone. And I'm excited. I'm buying this book for sure. And the reason why is because I love to read books that are inspiring, that, give me kind of a perspective that I didn't think about. Because when we think we're done with personal development, something else rears its ugly head, because then we get to a different level of our success, and then boom, you hit, a whole nother milestone of, and then now I have all of these self-sabotage tendencies that I didn't realize existed, of now I feel like they're going to see me as a fraud for this, so definitely, Alysia, I'm excited. And just to remind our listeners, Unemployable, How I Hired Myself, it's absolutely an adorable cover. It's so cute, with it's got Alysia's hair. It's so cute with the cover. And Do you have the opportunity to mentor those women around you in this global UN as a champion?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mentored many, many women. I'm incredibly proud of what they've gone on to do. Like many of them have become way more successful than me. And I think that's what it's about, to be able to say, I see this person and I can, through what I know, I can do better than the generation before me. And I'm sure you know what I mean, where I'd reach out to women from previous generations and they were like, there's only place for one woman here. And we all know that feeling. And it was always so strange because many of my female mentors, they're like, mentees, they're like, why are you doing this for us? Like, why do you do this for us? And I'm like, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, it's just like, it comes from my soul. And the idea that I see you excel gives me immense amounts of joy. And it's incredibly, I don't know, the only way it can be. That's how things change for the better.
Yeah, I'm even going to say to our listeners out there, if you're working in a company and you have an annual conference coming up, I would love for you to connect with Alysia and give her a call. I mean, she could be so empowering, at a conference for pretty much any industry. It doesn't have to be, it could be a dental hygiene and industry in the dentist world. And I think that you would still be an amazing keynote speaker and someone who could share your passion about, how you've risen to where you are today. Now, Alysia, how can they buy the book and get in? How would you like them to get in touch with you or follow you or engage with you?
Easiest place to buy the book is Amazon. And regarding getting in touch with me, you can find me on Instagram, Alysia Silberg. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. And I know you're all businesswoman, so that's fantastic. Reach out to me. As I say, I do my absolute best to respond to as many women as I can. And I have a daily AI newsletter, which I know, Colleen, you're incredible with your newsletters. Absolutely amazing. I aspire to be like you, but I have a daily AI newsletter, which I'd love to share because I think it's incredibly important, especially for women. I've seen the benefits of AI myself as a woman in terms of just giving me incredible opportunities that I wouldn't have had I not been using it. So I'm there to educate and empower entrepreneurs and women to really get good with the AI. So please reach out to me. I want to hear from you. I want to support you. And
I want to get on that newsletter for AI. It's a rapid growth in technology. And, I feel like it's kind of like when the cell phone came out, everyone was, I still have my house phone, I know it's over here and I kind of might dabble in it a little bit and use it, but I still have my house phone. It's like the last person is still probably not let go of cable TV, right? Because you have streaming. And then I was like, wait a minute, cable TV is super expensive and streaming was like $14 a month. But then now with all the streaming platforms, I think I'm paying the same amount that I was paying for cable before. So the industry got us, I'll tell you that. But I think that's what it is with AI. It's like you're still kind of holding on to the way that you write and your authentic voice. But I'll tell you, I've had some teachers come in and really teach understanding more about, having AI understand your persona. And it is just an amazing tool in every area to assist you with podcast development and shows with, content, paid, sales pay, whatever it is that you're doing. There's so much that you can utilize it for. So I definitely want to get on your newsletter and learn more about that because you are an AI expert and enthusiast. And I think that, that's definitely an area that I am not. And so I stay in my lane. I'm a numbers girl. I love the businesses. I love, building and generating more income for sure. That is what I love to do. So AI is not it for me. So everyone go to Alysia for the AI. Buy her book, Unemployable, How I Hired Myself by Alysia Silberg. And you can find that on Amazon. We also have a website of readunemployable.com. So you can go to that website as well. Again, on Instagram, Alysia Silberg, Twitter, Same, Alysia Silberg in LinkedIn. Go follow her on all of her channels and see what she's up to. If anything, she's just adorable. So why wouldn't you want to follow her? I just think some people have some of the greatest social media pages. So definitely go do that. And I just want to share with my listeners, just a reminder for every single one of them that just forgets this. I say it every time, but you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that is ever going to be. So are you happy with where you are today? Are you happy with your situation, your relationships, your job, your career, your business, anything that you could possibly list out, your home that you live in? If you are not happy with some of these things, you are the only person that can change it. We have to create change, not wait for change. Change doesn't just happen around us. And most of the time, the change that does happen is not the change you want to happen anyway. So you need to take control of your life. You need to be the one that gets out there and leads and pulls those reins and changes those things in your life, because they're not going to change. So design your life the way you want to design it, the way Alysia did, the way she took her passions, the way she took all of the things that happened to her in her life and created a life and designed it for life to happen for her. Like harnessed all of that. You can do that too. We all can. So Alysia, thank you. You're just a fabulous guest.
Colleen, thank you. I loved every minute of this. You got to come to LA. I want to hang out with you in person because you are just so fabulous and you're doing something so important. And I just thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and hosting me. Such a privilege.
Yeah, I go over to California every quarter, so we'll definitely hook up and we'll meet up and we'll just have a blast. Like I know we will. I'm sure there's some collaborations we can do too, to champion women and bring them together. Today was just such a pleasure to have you on the show. And to all of our listeners, again, thank you so much. To learn more about the LEAP community, you can go to colleenbiggs.net/community and find out how you too can be supported and get the visibility you need to grow your business. Until next time, to all of you, thank you so much. Be you and be strong. Until then, bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery, where you learned the tools to create a life by design. Remember, you are the only you there is, and you are the only you that will ever be. Be you and be strong, because you are brilliant, and the world needs you at your best. We cannot wait for you to join us again next time.